Ryuji Takasu is a teenager who's just starting high school, but people stay away from him and think he's a delinquent because of his eyes. However, he happens to be a very nice person who cares for other people's happiness. Everyone at school is afraid of Ryuji, except Yusaku Kitamura and the girl he likes, Minori Kushieda. But Ryuji isn't considered the only top dog at school. There's also Teiga Asaka, who's a dwarf, but also very violent. On the day of orientation, Ryuji bumps into Teiga and she throws an uppercut, knocking him down. Later, Ryuji finds out that Minori and Teiga are in the same class as him. After school, Ryuji goes back to his class to get his bag. As soon as he grabs his bag, Teiga, who's there, starts to freak out. At home, Ryuji finds a love letter in his bag. It's from Teiga to his friend Yusaku Kitamura. At night, Teiga goes to Ryuji's house and tries to attack him because he knows her secret. After several tries, she collapses from hunger. Ryuji feeds her and then settles the score by sharing his secrets with Teiga. Teiga learns from a notebook that Ryuji likes Minori and teases him. The night passes by and Ryuji suddenly realizes that it is almost morning. He promises Teiga that he'll help her to write a proper love letter and sends her off. In the morning, Ryuji learns that Teiga lives near his home. He opens the window and finds Teiga on her balcony in front of him. He then goes to her apartment and finds it very fancy. But as soon as he enters, he notices everything is a mess. His cleaning compulsion kicks in and he gets his hands to clean everything up. Teiga gets out of bed and insults him like a spoiled brat. Since then, Teiga started to eat breakfast with Ryuji and his mother Yasuko. To Ryuji's shock, the little dwarf has a black hole instead of a stomach and eats all his food. Later, they walk to school together and on their way they see Minori. Ryuji blushes when he sees Minori, but she misunderstands the situation and thinks the two are dating. Ryuji and Teiga work on a plan during gym class. Their goal is for Teiga to get teamed up with Kitamura, but it backfires when Ryuji headshots the distracted Teiga with the basketball. Ryuji then tries to help Teiga to give Kitamura some cookies. They notice Kitamura running away and Teiga falls down the stairs while chasing him. Ryuji saves her, but she ends up throwing cookies through a window. Later, Ryuji eats her crushed cookies out of consideration. The rumors of Ryuji and Teiga spread into the school. Minori takes them to the rooftop and tells them she hopes for their best. Kitamura comes out of nowhere and says they look good together. At night, Ryuji and Teiga take out their frustration by beating a light pole. Teiga decides to confess her feelings to Kitamura and stop bothering Ryuji. The next morning, Teiga tells Minori and others that nothing is going on between her and Ryuji. Ryuji ends up thinking that Teiga is doing all to clear his path for Minori. Later, Teiga confesses to Kitamura but ends up complimenting Ryuji in the process. For some reason, our boy Kitamura friend-zones her and tries to become Ryuji's wingman. Ryuji appears with his hello there, telling that he saw the whole thing. A few days later, Ryuji notices Minori doing her Pimp My Classmate's phone impression. She asks Ryuji if she can also pimp his phone, but he blushes and declines. At Ryuji's home, Teiga watches Ryuji cooking and talking to himself about Minori. Teiga kicks him for ignoring her. Teiga takes Ryuji to some place for dinner and Ryuji finds out that Minori works there. Ryuji compliments Minori's smile on the way back from dinner. Teiga gets annoyed and kicks him once again. The next morning, Ryuji and Teiga go to a restaurant for breakfast because Ryuji wants to see Minori. On their way, they meet his mom's customer. It turns out that Minori is working at that man's shop. The same man asks if they want to work there, which Ryuji accepts to. Teiga gets mad because Ryuji accepted the proposal for both of them. Ryuji shows his kindness and offers help to Minori. However, they both mistakenly get locked up in the storage room. Teiga is getting back from a delivery when she sees Kitamura. He compliments her on learning to ride the bike. Teiga returns to the shop but doesn't find Ryuji or Minori. Ryuji and Teiga stack boxes to get out through the ventilator. As Ryuji gets up, he finds Teiga outside the ventilator. She gets inside. Ryuji gets worried about Teiga and goes to her apartment to give her breakfast and clean up. He finds some blurry pictures of Kitamura in a box. Teiga finds him and before she gets mad, he tells her that he can take Kitamura's pictures for her. Teiga and Ryuji meet Kitamura in the locker area where Teiga embarrasses herself before Kitamura. Teiga gets jealous of student body president Kitamura and vice president Sumair during morning assembly. Later, she gets into an argument with Sumair and Kitamura stops her. At the lunch break, Kitamura and Minori join Ryuji and Teiga, which makes both of them nervous but happy. Kitamura praises Teiga's lunch, but she's tense and points at Ryuji when asked if she made it herself. Ryuji tries to save the situation by telling that he likes to make lunches to make some extra cash. Ryuji enjoys his OCD as he's on cleaning the bathroom duty, but Teiga forces him to take some pictures of Kitamura, but ends up taking his blurry pictures herself. The next morning, Taiga tries to help Ryuji make lunches for Minori and Kitamura. At school, Minori shows Ryuji some pictures of the puddings that she made. He finds a picture of Kushida enjoying the pudding and takes it. Later, Taiga gives Ryuji the pictures of Kitamura to laminate. Kitamura sees his pictures in Ryuji's hands and tells him he used to have a crush on Taiga, but she rejected him when he confessed to her. Ryuji and Taiga go to the restaurant so that Ryuji can see Minori. There they see a famous model, Ami Kawashima, with Kitamura. Kitamura introduces Ami to Ryuji and Taiga as his childhood friend. Ami gets friendly with Ryuji and holds his hand on the table. Later, Kitamura shows Ryuji what Ami is really like. They see Ami being mean to Taiga, who then slaps her. The next morning, they find Ami transferring to their school as their classmate. Ryuji finds Ami at the vending machine where she tries to win him at her side against Taiga. Through a note, Taiga asks Ryuji why he was with Ami when they entered the classroom. Later, he receives another note from Minori to not to break Taiga's heart. After school, Ami tries to bully Taiga again but is ignored. Eventually, Ami talks about Kitamura and that freezes Taiga up. Ryuji tells Taiga that Kitamura knows Ami's real nature, and they go to the store. Later, coming back from a convenience store, they both see Ami with a lot of junk food heading home. Ryuji, Taiga, and Minori spot a boy with a camera near the school. Later, while coming back from school, Ami tells Ryuji about the photographer who's been following her. Ami ends up staying at Taiga's apartment to avoid the stalking. Taiga forces Ami to eat lunch with them by blackmailing her over some out-of-character pictures. While cleaning, Ryuji and Ami end up together. Ryuji reveals to her that he knows about her act, so she should stop it. It starts raining there and they both take a shade when they see the stalker following Ami. Taiga and Minori return from cleaning and the stalker takes a picture of Taiga. Taiga scolds him and chases him. Ami gets jealous of Taiga's strength. Gathering courage, Ami swears before Ryuji to show everyone her real side. She then chases the stalker and destroys his camera to bits. Because of the rain, Ryuji takes Ami to his place and gives her tea. Ami makes a move on Ryuji and gets really near to him when suddenly Taiga sees them. Taiga leaves Ryuji's house after looking at Ami moving close to him. Later, while making dinner, Ryuji tries to explain to Taiga that Ami was just messing with him. The homeroom teacher tells the students that the pool is open. Taiga hears this and gets worried. Later, Ryuji and Minori take Taiga to a swimsuit store. Taiga gets mad when she sees Ami there. Ami wears a swimsuit to try and impress Ryuji, but he ends up checking on Taiga instead. Ryuji finally understands the dilemma Taiga is in because of the swimsuits. Taiga cries in front of Ryuji for having a flat chest. Ryuji tells her not to worry as he can fix the problem. Ami shows off her swimsuit and gets praise from others. Ami gets angry when she sees the boys admiring Taiga, then leaves. Ami holds Taiga high and throws her into the pool. Taiga calls for help and Ryuji notices she can't swim. He goes to save her. Later, Ami apologizes to Taiga, but she doesn't accept it. They start arguing. Minori tells them to settle their matter with sports. Minori draws the competition for Taiga and Ami for a 50 meters swimming race. During the class, Ryuji gets a note from the whole class. The note is about how Ami and Taiga are competing to win Ryuji over. At the pool, Ryuji teaches Taiga how to swim, but she gets nervous as Kitamura comes close to her. The next day, the pool doesn't open because of the rain. Kitamura gives Ryuji 2 passes for a public swimming pool for Taiga's practice. At the vending machine, Ami tells Ryuji she wants to spend summer with him at the beach. The next day, Ryuji takes Taiga to a public swimming pool, but it starts raining there. While sitting and waiting for the rain to stop, Taiga gets jealous of Ami. She argues with Ryuji and leaves, crying. That day, Taiga doesn't come to Ryuji's place for dinner. The next day, Ryuji gives Taiga breakfast on their way to school. Ami wears a bikini for the race while Taiga appears with a lot of swimming stuff. The race starts when Taiga throws Ami into the pool and opens her slip and takes a strong start. Ami wears it back and tries to catch up when Taiga gets her ankle wrenched. Ryuji tries to help Taiga and sends her forward. Meanwhile, 2 boys fly into the pool and hit Ryuji, making him faint. Taiga cries and tells Ami that Ryuji is hers. Later, she tells Ami she's going to her beach house with Ryuji. Taiga decides to help Ryuji to get him close to Minori. The vacation starts and Kitamura and Minori join Ryuji, Taiga and Ami for the trip. Taiga makes Minori listen to horror music so Ryuji can notice that Minori gets scared easily. Ryuji cleans the farmhouse while others go to the beach. Kitamura asks Ryuji to go to a store with him, but he suggests taking Taiga with him, which she refuses. Later, Ryuji accidentally goes to the bathroom and finds Ami, who messes with him. Ryuji ends up making the curry extra too spicy at Minori's request. However, they keep eating it because of how it tastes good. Taiga goes to Kitamura's room for medicine. Minori shares a snack and time with Ryuji. Later, Taiga and Ryuji eat and talk about their progress in love. After that, they see strange things and the doors knock. Ryuji and Taiga plan to scare Minori for Ryuji to get close to her. Kitamura hears them and eventually joins them in their mission to scare Minori. Minori helps Ryuji prepare breakfast and lunch for everyone. They compliment each other while Ami hears them from a distance. Ryuji goes to get Ami from her room and she tries to seduce him. She asks Ryuji why he is doing so much for Minori, but he doesn't answer. Kitamura realizes Ami won't help, so he goes to set things up by himself. Everyone takes Minori to a cave. Kitamura's traps are idiotic, and Ryuji finds something slimy that scares Minori. Ryuji tells Taiga that the thing on his hand was real, and she runs to Minori. Ryuji ends up with Ami, who teases him. Suddenly they hear a scream and run thinking it's Minori. Ryuji and Ami join up with Kitamura and Taiga. Kitamura tells them that something took Minori and goes after her. They suddenly hear strange voices. Taiga goes after Minori and Kitamura, but it turns out that Minori was playing a prank on them. Minori reveals to everyone that everything was her doing, and that Kitamura was her partner in this. They enjoy fireworks and Ryuji talks to Ami and then to Minori. Minori says to Ryuji that he always tries to make everyone happy. Ryuji and Taiga see Minori, then a classmate, Haruto Koji, tells them that the culture festival is coming. The time for the culture festival approaches. The boys talk about what dresses they should make the girls wear. Ultimately, Kitamura suggests a cosplay cafe, and every boy agrees. Taiga gives Ryuji her clothes for him to fix. Ami complains about Ryuji spoiling her. Taiga's phone vibrates and she calls her father a bastard. Ami nominates Taiga for the pageant and she hates it. Later, a student suggests a cosplay cafe, which the girls deny. Ryuji ends up talking to Taiga's father. He tells Ryuji that he is divorcing his wife and wants to be with Taiga again. Ryuji gets worried about Taiga's father and tries to convince Taiga, but she refuses. Haruto gives scripts to everyone for the pro wrestling show at the cultural festival. Kitamura tells the class that the class with the best exhibit wins 4 awesome prizes. On the way home from school, Ryuji and Taiga find Taiga's father. Taiga kicks her father, but then Ryuji and Taiga have a talk. After that, she decides to listen to her father. Everyone at school makes preparations for the cultural festival. After school, Taiga's father shows up with a fancy car and she goes with him. Taiga gives Ami fancy and rare chocolates and asks her to switch roles with her for pro wrestling. Minori learns about Taiga's dad and argues with Ryuji about why Taiga shouldn't go with him. Ami talks to Ryuji and cheers him up. Later, Ryuji finds out from her mother that Taiga is moving out. Taiga talks to Ryuji through her balcony window and asks him to apologize to Minori. Ryuji and Taiga get ready for the pro wrestling act. Ryuji never gets to apologize to Minori. The pro wrestling act starts and Taiga and Ryuji make an entrance. First, Taiga forgets about her line, then the teacher starts freaking out in the audience. Later, Taiga and Ami get face to face according to the script and the show ends. After the show, Ryuji and Minori look at each other and feel down. Later, Taiga tells Ryuji to stop worrying about her and make up with Minori. Watch this next video. See you on the next one.